No, you supposed to watch the movie first and then the video. It's all good. You'll notice that the movie takes place in a prison, in the lowest level of the prison, the basement of it. Prisons are often equated to hell on earth. So, on one hand, we have Dr. James Martin, who appears to be a model citizen, very successful psychiatrist, PhD with many accolades. He dwells on the upper levels of society, purgatory, the earthly paradise, whereas Edward dwells in the prisons, in the lowest levels of the prisons. He is the damned. So Dr. James Martin is the angel sent to save Edward, who is the damned, the demon. And Dr. James Martin journeys into the pit of hell, right, which is the lower level of the prison, to cross-examine Edward, and ultimately where he encounters the Lord and High Prince, Nefarious, his daemon. You see, Dr. James Martin and Edward are inverses of one another. Both of them are fucking geniuses, and they both share the same connection to the same daemon. And when I say daemon, I mean divine intelligent entity, divine intelligent spirit. Why do you think the daemon knows so much about him, right? He has pictures of him ever since he was young, even things that Dr. James Martin forgot about totally and completely. He journeyed into the abyss, where you can argue and say he encountered what many people would say his lower self, which is Edward. Now, Dr. James Martin, the intellectual that he is, thinks that he has it all figured out, but quickly realizes that he doesn't know shit. He thinks Edward is insane, right, for a while, and then, when Nefarious starts to mention certain things about Dr. James Martin, that there's no way that he should know, right? And then when they search Edward's cell and see all of those pictures, right, you got to think about all of that, right? Dr. James Martin realizes he doesn't really know shit. And so think about it. These two are inverses of one another. This is why Nefarious, right, has access to memories that Dr. James Martin totally and completely forgot about, right? That he doesn't even know about himself. Memories and experiences which have been cast deep into the depths of his unconscious mind, which are now being resurfaced, right, via this encounter with Nefarious and Edward. Edward, who one can argue may symbolize sort of like the id, right? Lower impulses, drives, and instincts, base level emotions. And Dr. James Martin, the complete opposite. And then Nefarious, the daemon. Now you see, Dr. James Martin fucks up, right? And he makes the same mistake that Christ made. You see, because and shout out to my mentor, right? Because this is something that we be chopping it up about, right? And he first brought to my awareness. Christ and Judas, right? They're inverses. So think about it, right? 5 letters, right, to Christ's first name. And here in the West, right, his name begins with the letter J. And same as Judas, right? 5 letters. That's not a coincidence. 5 is associated with Mars energy, right? Conflict, strife, resistance. Now here's the thing, right? So let's argue and say Christ indeed was a living God. Now this is a being, right, who is not like regular people, capable of great feats, great acts, even able to see the future, right, before it even occurs. And he was able to see, right, that his friend Judas would sell him out, right? And he could see things far even beyond that. And so this being here who is able to do these miraculous acts and is even able to see that his friend, right, will sell him out for 30 pieces of silver. Well, obviously, right, he can see that because this is not a regular human, right? This is not a regular being, right? And so he can see that the reason why his friend did this was because his friend obviously needed the money, right? And his friend is a human, right? And so you can see that his friend, who obviously needed the money, sold him out. But his friend didn't know that they were going to crucify him. He had no idea that was going to happen, but Christ did. And so you ask yourself, why didn't he make arrangements, right? Why didn't he perform an act to where his friend could have the money, to where he didn't have to, sell him out, right? Because his friend was, you could tell Judas didn't know, right, that they were going to kill him, because when they crucified him, he was so distraught that he ended up hanging himself. And so Judas didn't know this, but Christ did. And so what we see end up happening, right, is that both of them, right, the mirror inverses, end up sort of in the same predicament. Christ winds up nailed to a cross, right? A cross is constructed of wood. Christ himself is a woodworker, right? Because he's a carpenter. Carpenters, right, produce structures from wood. And so, right, the woodworker, the carpenter, is placed upon a structure, right, erected of wood, the cross, right, which symbolizes a tree. And his mirror inverse, Judas, ends up hanging himself, right, on a tree. 2 serpents dead on a tree. And so you ask yourself, why didn't he perform a miracle, right, to arrange to where Judas didn't have to sell him out? And well, it's because he wanted the glory. He took the route of becoming a martyr, to become immortalized. But he sold his friend out. He stuck him in the pit so that he could fucking attain the glory. And we see Dr. James Martin do the same thing to Edward, don't we? He can tell some unexplainable shit's going on. But despite that, he fucking signs off so that Edward be executed. Sticks him in the fucking pit and goes to attain the glory and the accolades. And so we see that this happens, right, with James and Edward. We see this happen with Jesus and Judas, right? It's like a sort of fucking polarization. Because peep, right? Dr. James Martin is sort of left brain oriented, logic, reason, the science of psychiatry and psychology, knowledge, left brain, mechanistic, like angelic. Edward, vulnerable, open, sensitive, chaotic, right brain oriented, also a genius. And look, both of them are psycho. Dr. James Martin is more so a sociopath, whereas Edward is a psychopath. Sociopaths have like a moral compass, right? But their moral compass is pretty it's fucked up. Because as Nefarious mentioned, right, Dr. James Martin murdered his mom, and he sent the woman that he was with, he wasn't in love with her, right? He planned to break up with her. He sent her to get an abortion, and he left her to do it by herself. He kills a baby, and then he signs off, right, so that Edward be executed. Kills 3 people. He kills 3 people and deludes himself as if that's not what he's done. He's a sociopath. Lost control and signed off when Edward put the chain around his neck. But according to societal norms, right, Dr. Martin, right, you're a doctor, right, you're supposed to know better than that. To get that emotional to the point to where you sign off on someone who you see is clearly unstable and is experiencing things that you cannot even explain and needs help, but you sign off that they be executed because killing unconsciously has become normal for you. He's a criminal, like Nefarious. And so think back to Christ. He's crucified between 2 thieves who are what? Criminals. Y'all think that's a coincidence? Where 3 of you are present, there I am. Oh, and listen, he even invites the 2 thieves, right, to his father's houses with many mansions. He tells them they got a spot there after traversing his own personal hell. Yeah, my pops got many mansions. Come on. Like, what the fuck's going on in this movie, right? What the fuck's going on in the scriptures? It's really interesting, just a lot to think and ponder on. But yeah, let me know y'all thoughts, like, comment, and share. If you're still here at this point, I really appreciate you, because I said a lot here. Y'all be easy.